and Nobara be Kenjaku's secret weapon in the closing stages of the Jujutsu Kaisen story. We have not heard anything about Nobara ever since she supposedly died in chapter 125. Even the characters themselves don't mention anything about her, which I do find an issue with, which I'll be honest with you. But having zero mentions of her, I find quite strange in Akutami's part. Is Akutami saving Nobara for a dramatic twist in the end? Because for me, this all feels like a setup for another tragedy moment involving Yuji, as Yuji was the one to witness her getting killed. It happened right in front of his face, so if Nobara were to return and be the enemy against Yuji, that will be a proper killer for Yuji's spirit and soul. Now, let's quickly remind ourselves, how did Nobara die in the first place? During the Shibuya incident arc, Yuji and Nobara were face to face with Mahito. Mahito's curse technique allowed him to reshape a soul through a touch, either his own or his target's. In doing so, he could painfully manipulate his target's body to match their soul. Mahito split himself into two and faced Yuji and Nobara individually. However, Nobara's curse technique allowed her to attack her opponent's soul through severed body parts, thus making her the perfect match to fight Mahito. Mahito soon realized this and switched places with his double. This left both sorcerers Yuji and Nobara confused. While Yuji took down the double, Mahito seized the opportunity and took advantage of a confused Nobara to touch her with idol transfiguration, with one of the sides of Nobara's head exploding. Due to Yuji not having obtained control of Sukuna's powers, he was unable to use reverse cursed energy to save her. This is a key moment for me, as we had arriving on the scene with Todo was Arata Nita. He is one of the few Jujutsu sorcerers who possesses an ability that can stop the bleeding of an injury. So he can't exactly heal someone, but it's good enough to delay the inevitable. And he does end up using his curse technique to freeze Nobara's body and its injuries. Essentially, with this technique, her body remains stuck in the brief moments after her passing. This raises the chances for her to be healed and even so resurrected by someone who can use reverse curse technique like Yuta or Shoko, or possibly Kenjaku. Because remember guys, in chapter 205, when Kenjaku was fighting off against Yuki, Yuki managed to break Kenjaku's arms, and to recover from this, Kenjaku used reverse curse technique to heal himself. Now, currently it is kind of awkward with Kenjaku, considering that Yuta has killed off Kenjaku back in chapter 243 when he sliced his head off. But Kenjaku ends the chapter by saying, "My will shall be carried on." What does this mean? Has he found a way to still be alive, hence why his will can be carried on? Or will he have someone in place to take over his mantle and carry on his legacy? Sort of like how Yuta and Yuji are basically carrying on Gojo's will. Does Kenjaku have someone that can carry on his legacy? Well, yes he does. And as of right now, technically speaking, Mahito isn't dead. He's just absorbed by Kenjaku, as we see in chapter 133. I think you guys can now see where I'm going with this. We have two characters in Nobara and Mahito, both who have questionable deaths in the same arc, in the Shibuya incident arc. We also had both of these characters fight off against each other already. Mahito was the one who supposedly killed Nobara right in front of Yuji, so the emotional turmoil Yuji will face if he were to see either of these characters return will be an absolute madness. We have seen in the Shibuya incident arc itself with the return of Toji in that Shikigamis, or spirits that have died regardless of them being human or cursed spirits, can come back to life as long as there is a vessel. The old lady and her grandson is case in point, where the old lady summoned Toji and made her grandson be the vessel for Toji's spirit. Unfortunately for her grandson, Toji is a spiritual beast and managed to actually take over her grandson's body entirely. And even with Sukuna and Megumi, Sukuna has fully taken over Megumi's body with no drawback from Megumi. Even Yorozu, when she took over Megumi's sister's body, there was no pushback or anything. They literally took over their bodies without any pushback from the characters of the bodies that they have taken over. It's only Yuji who managed to actually keep Sukuna in check, which implies that there is something special within Yuji. But overall, the evidence from what we have seen from the series is that usually if a cursed spirit uses a human body as a vessel, it would usually take it over with no pushback from the human. Now, what I'm thinking will happen in the future chapters, and again, this is just a theory, it may not happen, but there's no reason for it not to happen. I'm thinking Kenjaku, in the 1 month time skip before the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, summoned Mahito because remember, Kenjaku absorbed Mahito. He didn't kill him, which means he can now use Mahito and summon him like how Geto summoned his cursed spirits back in the Gojo past arc. He summoned Mahito and transferred Mahito into Nobara's body because we don't know or have seen Nobara's body ever since Shibuya, and Kenjaku was literally lurking around in the shadows ambushing everyone in Shibuya. He ambushed Gojo, he fought Mei briefly in the underground tunnels, he ambushed Yuji right at the end of the arc. What was he doing off screen? And I can say as well that for the 1 month time skip between Gojo's return and the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, we saw in chapter 244 in a flashback that all the Jujutsu sorcerers were planning some contingencies in case Gojo were to be defeated against Sukuna. They were thinking of using Higuruma's deadly sentencing against Sukuna in order to deplete Sukuna's cursed energy if he were to be found guilty of the crimes he had committed so far in the story. So this is just an example of us in real time seeing the flashbacks of that month. We have seen from the hero's side what they were doing in the 1 month time skip in preparation for the Gojo vs Sukuna fight. We have yet to see what Kenjaku was doing for this month. I'm thinking in this month he summoned Mahito and transferred him into Nobara's body. And it goes back to the quote of "My will shall be carried on" at the end of chapter 243. Kenjaku and Mahito have always had a close relationship. Out of all the 4 disaster curses, Mahito was the one that had the most screen time with Kenjaku. And even in the end, Kenjaku didn't end up killing Mahito. So there must be a reason why he kept him alive. Mahito must have been the one that Kenjaku was referencing regarding his will being carried on, and the silence surrounding Nobara's death amongst our cast cannot be denied either. It feels like Akutami almost wants us to forget about Nobara and Mahito, just for him to unleash this bombshell on us, with Mahito being inside of Nobara's body. I can see the scenes right now, Yuji and the other sorcerers fighting off against Sukuna, and then out of nowhere we see Nobara shocking our heroes, just like how Gojo was shocked when he saw Geto in the Shibuya incident arc, only for it to be revealed that Mahito is the one inside of Nobara's body controlling her. He can also use his idol transfiguration to change Nobara's body shape, which will be even more gruesome to see. Emotionally, this will hit home for all of us. I have seen anime-onlys for Jujutsu Kaisen actually quit the story because they couldn't take their favorite characters dying, and for many of them, Nobara dying was the final straw. So can you imagine the reaction if we end up seeing Yuji's arch-enemy in the early arcs of the story, and the reason why many believe Nobara is dead in the first place, and him being the one to actually kill Yuji's mentor Nanami? If this were to happen, we will not only see Nobara make an unironic return, it will be a fake out basically. I can see Akutami revealing Nobara's return at the end of a chapter as a cliffhanger. Just like in chapter 211, Akutami made a cliffhanger ending with Megumi's sister adding a rule to the culling games which went against Megumi and Yuji's plan, with Megumi asking, "Who is she?" So Akutami can use the Nobara reveal at the end of a chapter and possibly in the following chapter reveal that it's actually Mahito who's in control. Yuji having both of his best friends being controlled by his 2 worst enemies is something that only Akutami will do. He had Sukuna take control of Megumi, and we have seen countless times that Yuji wants to protect Megumi from Sukuna, and we can have Mahito take over Nobara's body and carry on Kenjaku's will. We have seen Yuji in chapter 210 where Yuji mentioned to Megumi that he is afraid of Hana, the angel, replacing Nobara in the friendship group, which shows that he misses her and probably feels responsible for her supposed death as she died right in front of him. I'm telling you guys, there's little gaps in the story that can make this theory come true, and I have a feeling something this cruel and evil only Akutami will do to Yuji. But let me go over to you guys. What do you guys think? Do you think Mahito will return in Nobara's body and carry on Kenjaku's will? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, as your tribal chief always says, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.